Okay, so I just want to talk about conscription briefly, and I want to talk about structural violence because the fact that the men's rights movement doesn't talk about structural violence and doesn't frame feminism as structural violence and misandry as structural violence actually shows you how incompetent they are. So I haven't watched the Shield for Men's video about this yet because I want to give my own thoughts on this. Okay, his videos tend to be better researched and more detailed than mine. Mine are more polemic than his are more like theory as well, like ideological. So the West has started a pointless conflict with Russia. It's pure aggression, right? Ukraine's been democided, male genocided right now because of this. The Ukraine Nazis, like all white nationalist groups, are just destroying their own men because they hate the other side so much they don't care about their own people. So white nationalists do this thing, oh, we just care about our own race, our own people. Why are you against that when they're the most self-destructive force ever exist, right? White nationalists and racists don't care about their own people, their own race. They just hate the other side and want them dead. That's the real motive there. The real lizard-brained subhumans. Okay? So it's a proven fact that the less men are in society, the worse off society is. We actually need a male surplus, actually. Right? Okay? But right-wingers have this male scarcity obsession because it's straight out of Doctor Strangelove, the Stanley Kubrick movie. That was the motive behind the nut jobs in that movie. They wanted male scarcity so they could have all the women to themselves. So I promise you, the people behind the draft, left or right, have got that same male scarcity mindset. They just want to draft men and get rid of them, right? So there's many different ways to kill people. You can just shoot them in the head, right? Mass executions, so that's too blatant. So what you do is you use structural violence and you diminish the quality of their life and you put them in dangerous situations. So, like for example, putting men in unpayable child support debt, right, and putting them in and out of prison is designed to stress them and drive them to an early grave, make them commit suicide. So is downmarking boys in schools and taking jobs away from them. Okay, that's designed to drive them to an early grave, and they create this fake crisis. Right, it's a crisis, but it's not a boy crisis. It's a discrimination crisis. Right, the male discrimination crisis. They create this crisis, right? And then they say, oh, look at all these surplus men, unemployed men, these useless men, right? Instead of seeing them as human beings, right, and wanting to help them and having empathy for them, they thought, oh, look, these useless surplus men, why don't we draft them and get rid of them, right? Okay? So drafting is kidnap, right? It's a form of status rape, okay? Right? Unless I don't believe in absolutes. Okay, I wouldn't rule out drafting completely, as long as the women are drafted as well. If there was an existential crisis and the invading country was worse than the defending country, I'd support conscription, right? Because I don't. But that's a very, very, very rare instance in the modern world, and that's not an instance that Europe is facing. They're starting shit with Russia that they didn't need to start, so they create the crisis, and this artificial crisis with Russia is used as a pretext to cut welfare, increase military spending as well, which is going to hit men even harder, right? You can't be neutral on this NATO conflict. You have to be against NATO, not pro-Russian, but you have to be against NATO. Okay, BRICS is the lesser of two evils in this situation by a huge margin. So this is just structural violence against men. This is all probably planned on some level. Okay, so this is structural violence, and most MRAs don't talk about structural violence. They talk about boy crisis, right? They talk about marriage reform, right? They talk about right-wing talking points, and a lot of men's rights activists, including suffragettes and others, they talk about immigration all the fucking time as well. They talk about immigration all the fucking time. showing they're not fucking serious. They don't have a. I don't talk about immigration barely. I've already said my stance on it, right? And I don't want to say it again, right? Okay, I just don't. Look, uncontrolled mass immigration can cause problems, but it's not an existential threat. There's literally women down mocking boys in schools, trying to close female prisons, arresting men for staring at them, right? 250,000 abortions a year in the UK alone, yeah, right? The Online Safety Act, which is designed to dox men, and this is going to get expanded into other things, right? Trust me, they want to dox men, and women are immune from doxing, so it's just it's a gender-specific threat. It's not a gender-neutral threat. Okay, they want to class men's rights activism as terrorism, and it will happen, right? Okay, the structural violence will increase. They'll take more and more jobs away from men, right? Create more unemployed men, create more mentally ill men, right? And then create false threat narratives about them. They're calling incels terrorists, right? Which is complete fucking horseshit. Incels are not organised or coordinated on any significant manner, and they're not political either, for the most part. They can't be terrorists under any sane definition of it. The UK feminist state is actually terrorist. It's a Ukraine Nazi supporting feminist terrorist state. Okay, right? So, yeah, I don't know what else to say about this right now. I'm just like, the discourse has to be about structural violence, and all the issues have to be linked together. It has to be all talk about feminist organisations as well and what they're doing. Yeah, because this collective shout thing is fucking weird. Like, it's just weird that they got control of there's definitely an alliance between Visa and MasterCard and Collective Shout. There's obvious links between these three groups, and they're going after stuff that men enjoy. This is structural violence. Debanking has already been rolled out. Like, they've done it against anti-Ukraine war protesters, right, and journalists, and they've already debanked hentai artists as well and stolen the money. So the debanking will be extended as well to men's rights activists. It'll include in real life banking as well. You'll suddenly find as a men's rights activist your bank account's going to be closed. Yeah, which should never happen. No one should have their bank closed apart from feminists. That's the only group that should have their bank closed. Because feminists belong in a mental asylum or in prison, so they don't need bank accounts, right? But any other group, not even neo-Nazis should have their bank accounts closed, right? In my opinion, if you're the most evil person imaginable, there should be no pretext to close your bank account, right? Because if you've done something so bad and evil, you don't need your bank account closed, except you're a feminist. You just need jailing. There's no pretext to close bank accounts. That's just the power the state shouldn't have. That's a power that no one should have. You should have a right to a bank account, no matter what. Except, again, if you're a feminist. Yeah? That's the only exception. I don't grant rights to feminists at all. Yeah? So, yes. So everything that feminists have got planned for us, we should do to feminists on a societal level, right? And actually, we would be more merciful than the feminists, because feminists want us dead. I just want them in the insane asylum, right? Or in some camp somewhere, right? And they'll be well fed and looked after, but they'll just be kept in the gates, right? They can have their arts and crafts, they can have their toys to play with, their sporting events, they can have their food in their camp, but if feminists put us in camps, they'll starve us to death. So we're far more merciful. I'm far more merciful than they are. Because I'm not keeping them in camps out of spite. It's just to protect us as men for our own safety. Well, that's over and out. So, what the fuck's alright?